Oh, hi, and welcome back into Nick's Practice Club, where I ramble on about things I find important in music and hopefully inspire you to pick up your instrument and practice. If that's something that you're into, please like and subscribe. If not, please like and subscribe. Today we're going to be tackling the CAGED system. Now, every guitar channel has put out videos on the CAGED system for good reason. Rick Beato actually just put out a video about getting beyond the CAGED system, but trust me, there is absolutely no reason to stampede past the CAGED system if you don't know what the heck the CAGED system can do for you. The reason it's so useful is it uses shapes that you're probably already used to if you've played guitar any stretch of time. It's a system of exploring how you can move one chord up and down the fretboard by using shapes of chords that you already know. The shapes that we're going to be dealing with are C, A, G, E, and D. If you don't know those chords already, you might want to take some time to learn those before you dive into this, but we're not going to be playing music that uses those 5 chords. You can play Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix if you need to practice them. That is a great way to break yourself in on those. What we're going to be doing is using those shapes and moving them up and down the fretboard in the order of the word caged, C-A-G-E-D, and playing, in this video, C chords all the way up and down the fretboard, and talking about how you can actually use those and have fun. So I'm going to be beating you over the head with this concept, but we are only talking about C chords in this video, but moving those shapes, but moving the C chord up and down the fretboard using the shapes of C chords, A chords, G chords, E chords, and D chords. I'll demonstrate quickly for you. Some of them I like more than others. Some of them I use more than others. So we'll get into that stuff later as well. I guess we should start by delineating what a chord is. That's the most important thing you need to know. And even if you know the shapes of all those chords, you might not know what the heck you're doing or what notes you're playing, nor do you have to. But a chord is a group of at least 3 notes. They come from a major scale. Here's a C major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And as we go through that, we're going to take the root note, the 3rd note, and the 5th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 3, 5. If I play those all together, we get this sound right here. That's a C chord right there. Just those 3 notes of the C chord create a triad, a C chord triad. So you might ask, what the heck are the other notes in a C chord? They're just copies of the same notes. Believe it or not, you don't have to believe me. You can look up charts. I'm going to put up some diagrams and you can see what I'm talking about here. But the notes in a C chord, the beauty of a C chord is it's all of the notes in a chord in order. 5th, root, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd. I can add a 5th up here. That's also known as an arpeggio. When you take a chord and you play it note by note, that's called an arpeggio. But the C shape is the only shape that we're going to be going through that has all of the notes in a chord in order. So you say, well, I play music that has more than 1 chord in it. Even the easiest songs usually have at least 2 or 3 chords. Well, we're not getting into that in this video. This is the first one. We're just going to be talking about how to deal with 1 chord at a time. All right. But if you were to expand this into other chords, you can use the exact same shapes. They would just be in different parts of the guitar. but they will always happen in the same order. Kind of convenient when you understand the basics of it and then learn to apply it to other chords. It can become a lot of fun. We're going to start with the very basics today, and I think it's still kind of fun. So let's take a look at a couple diagrams, shall we? Okay. All right, here we have two versions of the entire fretboard laid out in the CAGED system. The CAGED system, as I will say over and over again, is the way of working with one chord and how it works up and down the fretboard. So on the left, we see all of the notes. The C's are all in red. Those are all of our roots of our chords. And the E's and the G's are not. This program doesn't label the notes above the fretboard, but believe me, that's a G and that's an E right there, because those are your open G and E strings. So this can be pretty overwhelming, especially if you don't have all the notes memorized on your fretboard. I do highly recommend that, but there are plenty of good musicians out there that haven't bothered doing that step. And I'm not much of a note guy myself. I rarely think about notes that I'm playing other than finding the roots of chords and stuff. But this chart over on the right elucidates our situation a little bit more clearly. All the green here refers to our C chord shape. Okay, so this is a shape you've probably noticed before. You'll see that some of these are diamond shaped and have two colors on them. Well, that's because those contain the shapes of two different chords. Oh, my computer's thinking, huh? So we have a C chord shape here in green. In red here, we'll get to the orange bit later. In red here, we have an A shape. You'll notice that this is partly green and partly red because this note from the A chord from the A shape is actually the root of the chord. That's a C right there. And it's shared between both of these shapes. So the C is there in the C shape and there in the A shape. When we get down to the blue G shape, there's the shape you're used to if you just follow the blue markers there. These three are very important. You're going to do there's a lot of fun to be had with those. It's in between the A and the G shape, and you can see that the only individual note, the only unique note in the G chord is right here. In the G shape is right here. That happens to be an E. When we go down here to the purple E shape, you can follow here. You can see that two of those notes are shared with the G shape. And we have a few unique notes in that E shape right there, depending on how you think about it. And here we have a classic D-shaped chord. You'll notice that none of the notes in the D chord are unique. This note right here is actually a C. That's actually your root. So is this note. And this G and this E, well, they're actually found up here as well. If you know anything about your fretboard, you know that the 12th fret is basically where it starts over. That's the octave. So this note right here is G. This note right here is E. Those are the same up there, and you can see that I drew the diagram exactly the same. I don't particularly care for the D-shaped bar chord or chord, as it were, so I more often use those three notes based on a C shape, but whatever works for you. But this is just to show you that the shapes don't just exist on their own. A lot of the notes in each of these shapes exist in two shapes, and you can use that to your advantage. Let's explore that further, shall we? So let's bring that back to the guitar. We're going to go in order of each chord shape as we move up and down the neck with it, And I'll throw on a backing track and play along with it. And I'm also going to release the backing track that I'm using as a separate video, a nice 10-minute long practice track of literally one chord. YouTube is a great resource for finding backing tracks. You can look up other videos, single chord backing tracks in C major. And you can play along with any of them with the concepts that I'm going through here. I guess I didn't talk about the difference between major and minor. Major chords come from a major scale. Minor chords come from a minor scale. The building blocks of music is a major scale. So we're going to be talking about that. I will get to minor CAGED system and how that's used in a future video. But for now, we're just going to be talking about major chords. So everything I'm talking about today can apply to any major chord that you're ever going to play. But we're going to stick with C for now. So the first shape of C that you're probably familiar with if you are a guitar player is this shape right here. I also like using this C/G shape, where I move my ring finger over to the low E string and play the 3rd fret there. That's a G. It's called C/G because anytime you see a slash chord, the upper letter is the chord you're playing, and the lower letter below the slash is the bass note. So it's a C chord with a G in the bass. And it's just a nice, big, beautiful sounding C chord that can generally be just substituted for C, and sounds good, and you don't have to worry about open strings ringing out and ugly things like that. So it's actually a little more physically difficult, but easier to control and sound good in the long run. So I like that. And the C chord shape here contains all the notes in the C chord and repetitions of them. All right, so that's the shape that you know. When I say that I'm going to use the A shape of the C chord, what I am going to do is my root is right there, my C is right here, 3rd fret on the A string. I'm going to superimpose an A chord shape over it. So you might think this is like how the jazzers play a A-shaped C chord, and I wish I had learned that way, but I learned the Eric Clapton way. So I just bend this finger to cover those 3 notes right there. The G shape, as we move up beyond that, it's really hard to use in its entirety. As you saw me fumble with it before, this is how you would use it in its entirety. That is pretty darn ugly. So typically, with those chords, we only use bits and pieces of it. Very often, I'll just use the high 4 strings of it. Just the 3 notes in a row create an entire C chord. The notes are G, C, E. They're inverted. It's a fancier term for how we're going to use the CAGED system in the future. But for now, we're just going to stick with thinking of them in shapes. And this lower part of the G chord, somewhat useful. I don't tend to use it a whole ton, but it's certainly part of it, and definitely something that can be used if you want to use the lower strings of the guitar. After the G shape comes the E shape. This is one of the most common beginner bar chord shapes everybody learns. Okay, it's the same shape as an E chord down here, but I don't have the nut up here on the 8th fret. So your pointer finger becomes the nut, and your remaining 3 fingers play that E-shaped chord. And finally, the D-shaped chord, all the way up here on the 10th fret, and I hate this shape. I gotta bend my ring finger in, use my pinky like that. I usually just use these 3 notes of it if I'm going to be playing it in that shape. Or this is actually a power chord. This is actually a 3-note power chord, a super power chord, if you will, rooted from the D string. AC/DC use that a bit, so never hurts to know all those things. And those are literally all C chords played up and down the fretboard using the shapes of the other cowboy chords. So let's talk about how we can actually use these moving up and down the fretboard. We're just dealing, like I mentioned before, and we'll mention probably 100,000 more times, only the notes in C chords moving up and down the fretboard. We're using the shapes of the other cowboy chords. And so you can, how can you use them? Well, you can just use them as chords. So if you're playing, there's our C shape. I can go up to the A shape. I'll go up to the G shape. Go up to our E shape. And my least favorite of them, the D shape. That's better than I usually play that one. So that would all work with a C background. Why don't we test that out, shall we? Here is the backing track that I made. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Oh, yeah, it's nice and relaxing. Just noodling around a C chord here. There's a C/G chord. Go up to the A shape. Now I'm just going to use those 3 notes for the G shape. Add the high note. Now I'm just going to use the diagonal notes of the E shape. Add a little note on there. Just figure out what notes sound good there. And the dreaded D shape. If I can actually play it. Now my trick for using that D shape is I don't generally use it. I use it more in a C shape. So this would be a full octave higher than your normal C chord down here. And I usually don't even use that much of it. I just use the high 4 strings of it. So that's just exploring the chords. You can use bits and pieces of all of those chords. Every bit and piece of every one of those shapes will work. You can just decide what works for you best. Now, what else can you do? Well, you can just use single notes in each of those shapes. I'll move up to the A shape. I can play jazz. G shape. So when I'm using just the making new things happen here, that's actually part of a pentatonic. I'm not going to deal with that, but not going to dive deeply into that right now. But you can just explore notes that work along with it. Go up to the E shape. So if you got a friend that can only play the cowboy chords, you can move up and play something more interesting along with it. And the dreaded D shape. Use pairs of notes. So I've been playing guitar a long time. Now, I'm not that good at guitar. I keep saying that. I'm a bass player. That's my excuse. All right. But I still have fun goofing around with things like this. I still get better and explore new ideas by just goofing around with things as simple as playing along with a one-chord backing track and seeing what I can do up and down the fretboard. The more advanced concepts are going to come. All right. The next video will be dealing with passing chords between these. Okay. And that's going to start involving more than just one chord at a time. But the background will still be just one chord. But there's a lot of things that you might have heard me do there, like those are cliche licks. I've done those a million times. But they're using bits of other chords in between the chords we already know, all right? It's not that mind-blowing. We're going to go step by step with it. So step one is explore up the C, A, G, E, and D shapes up and down the fretboard and have fun with it. Use my backing track, use any other backing track you can find, and we will check back next time to color those in a little bit more with some passing chords and some ornaments that are easy to play. If it wasn't easy, I wouldn't be doing it. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next episode of Nick's Practice Club. Have a good one, shall you? Okay.